All right, what's going on, everybody? Was doing some interesting research this morning, and I just thought it was something really important to share. Um, yeah, so probably most people have heard of Kellogg, the Kellogg cereal. Probably everyone's eaten it at some point. So Kellogg was actually John Harvey Kellogg. He was born in, I think, 1800s. Yeah, born in 1800s, 1852, died 1943. And he was a doctor, he was a nutritionist, and yeah, he was a nutritionist that led him to creating certain foods like cereals. And he was an advocate of vegetarian diets. And you can look on his Wikipedia page. It's all here. It's not conspiracy. It's all well documented history of this person. It's all on the main Wikipedia page. Um, let's see here. So I'll just go over some stuff that's kind of interesting. Let's see. Breakfast cereals, blah blah blah. Yeah, so he's pushing vegetarianism. Um, living. Yeah, so views on sexuality. Both as a doctor and an Adventist, Kellogg was an advocate of sexual abstinence. As a physician, Kellogg was well aware of the damaging impact of sexual transmittable diseases such as syphilis, which was incurable before the 1910s. Yeah, Kellogg devoted a large amount of his educational and medical work to discouraging sexual activity on the basis of dangers both scientifically understood at the time and in sexual transmitted diseases. Kellogg was an adherent of the teachings of Ellen G. White and Sylvester Graham, who inspired the creation of the graham cracker, advocated keeping the diet plain to prevent sexual arousal. Kellogg's work on diet was influenced by the belief that a plain and healthy diet with only 2 meals a day would reduce sexual feelings. These experiencing temptation were to avoid stimulating food and drink and eat very little meat, if any. Yeah, so we can see that he was into nutrition, and a lot of his studies were directly related to reducing sexual arousal, reducing masturbation. We'll read on a little bit more, but yeah, he's against eating meat. I mean, animal products, milk, meat, eggs, those are the most beneficial for increasing your hormones and all sorts of health things. And a lot of like these foods, like these processed grains, these cereals, they are not really beneficial for your hormones. They're not very digestible. They just cause a lot of health issues. And I mean, your sexuality is probably one of the main indicators of your health. I mean, if you have no sexual function or sexual desire, then something's probably wrong. I mean, that's kind of the most important thing for humanity is to procreate. So that's kind of like the number one thing. And this is what he was against. This is what he was trying to stop with all of his nutrition research, was to prevent basically people from being happy and healthy and being able to procreate and having happy families. Kellogg warned that many types of sexual activity, including excesses that couples could be guilty of within marriage, were against nature and therefore extremely unhealthy. He drew on the warnings of William Acton and expressed support for the work of his contemporary Anthony Comstock. He appears to have followed his own advice. It is believed that his own marriage was never consummated. Kellogg was an especially zealous campaigner against masturbation. This was an orthodox view at the time, especially during the earlier part of his life. Kellogg was able to draw upon many medical sources claims such as neither the plague nor war nor smallpox, nor similar diseases have produced results so disastrous to humanity as a pernicious habit of onanism, which is masturbation. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can read it yourself if you're really interested, but he just continues to go on about how bad sexuality is. So now this is pretty shocking. This was written, I don't know if it was a book he wrote, but it was probably a medical, published medical document of some sort. As a leader of the anti-masturbation movement, Kellogg promoted extreme measures to prevent masturbation. His methods for rehabilitation, in quotes, of masturbators included measures up to the point of mutilation without anesthetic on both sexes. He was an advocate of circumcising young boys to curb masturbation and applying carbolic acid to a young woman's clitoris. Yeah, it causes chemical burns. So carbolic acid will just, it's like burning a part of your skin off. And the clitoris is obviously the most sensitive part of a female. So, yeah, this was written in his document, which I can find somewhere else. But a remedy which is almost always successful in small boys is circumcision, especially when there's any degree of phimosis. The operation should be performed by a surgeon without administering anesthetic. So he encouraged it to be done without an anesthetic, as the brief pain attending the operation will have a salutary effect upon the mind. So he thought that the pain, he didn't want an anesthetic, not because he thought that it didn't cause pain, but he thought that the pain was good. As the brief pain attending the operation will have a salutary, which means beneficial. So he thought the pain was a beneficial part of the procedure. It will have a beneficial effect upon the mind, especially if it be connected with the idea of punishment, as it may well be in some cases. So you have to look at this here. His whole life work was to lower sexual desire in men and women. So he thought that if you suffered in your first days, if you had a painful experience linked to your genitals or your sexuality, this is a good thing. This was a good thing in his mind. He didn't want anesthetic because he wanted sexuality to be linked with pain, especially if it be connected with the idea of punishment. Just think about what that means. He wanted your sexuality to be connected to the idea of punishment, because his whole work was to prevent what he thought was bad, which was any sexual desire in any way. Pretty crazy. Yeah, and then he goes on that he had another method to prevent masturbation, which was to sew the end of the foreskin together with sutures to prevent men from getting erections. Yeah, and again, he promoted female mutilation, pure carbolic acid onto the clitoris. This is the guy. You're eating his food. You're eating his cereal. It's still out there. He was the big person to encourage circumcision in America, and not just circumcision. It was circumcision along with female mutilation too. It was not, in his mind, he never saw circumcision as, oh, it's good for men and not good for women. In his mind, it was all the same. He wanted every man and woman to be mutilated, to have this trauma, so that they would not be encouraged to have sex, because that's what he thought. That's what he thought was beneficial for humanity. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is link this Wikipedia page into my comments or into my description, and I'm going to link this other article, which is really it's a really good article. Let's just see if we can find anything else here. swore I had some other things to look at. That's pretty much it. Just give me a second. Let's see. Further reading. Yeah. I wanted to see eugenics. Alright, I'm gonna cut the video off here.